I have roughly 40 years of experience in law enforcement and security work, and I have some very serious concerns about ATV tourism in Tazewell County. Not all ATV riders are bad people. However, there are those that seek out thrills that provide concern for law enforcement and citizens around the county. The problem with policing ATV lawbreakers in our county is we cannot pursue safely an ATV. They're much smaller, much more mobile, have a much more rapid acceleration. They can go places we can't go in a police cruiser. So over the last 5 years, we've had almost 400 complaints in Tazewell County. The list of complaints boils down to reckless driving, noise, trespassing, property damage, and then the list kind of goes on from there. So as somebody who dealt with the sheriff's office budget on a regular basis, I already know that budgets are tight and they're only getting tighter. With the increase of ATV tourism, it would create an undue burden. Well, we have to provide more services, so we're going to have to increase taxes on meals or property or vehicles or whatever the case might be. There is a place for ATV tourism, just not on every single street, every single road in Tazewell County. Adding ATVs to all the roads in Southwest Virginia are going to create more injuries, more death, more destruction, more problems for families.
We were sold on a promise that when the ATVs come, we would get a lot of money, it would make the town better, but instead, that is not true. Some people are still afraid to speak out against the ATVs because they still think that, you know, the dream of getting a lot of money and everything like that is going to solve everything and it's going to happen, but it's really not going to. I love this town, you know, I want to see it succeed, but it definitely has not. It was promised that it would bring a lot of money and that could help our town because, I mean, our town is dead. Our town is still very poor. There's a lot of work that needs to be done still. We have not seen really any benefit from the ATVs financially or any way, actually. It hasn't blossomed the town like it needs to do. All the ATVs that come to town, it has made the town a lot worse. It has not made it for the better. It's just noisy, they're obnoxious. The noise makes it really hard to relax. There's so much noise you can't even watch television, have your windows open for the most part because of just all the noise. And they just go fast and they don't care. I mean, they tear everything up. People's properties, I mean, anything. They trash the place because they don't live here. We live here. Why would you go somewhere on vacation and, you know, mess their town up? We have to live here. We have to deal with it. We have to clean it up.
I am Beth Pike Clemons. I am a real estate agent in Tazewell County and have been for 26 years. People are coming here because of the peace, the tranquility, the beauty, and so when they come here and they find it, they want to be a part of it. A couple of different clients of mine throughout the years had purchased property in one of our farming communities here in the county. And after motorcycle tourism came through, they decided that the quiet, the peace, the disturbance of that was reason enough for them to leave. I think if ATV tourism increases in our county, I expect more people are going to leave. It is not a reason for them to move here, but it is a reason for them to move on. I've also experienced people who've come into the area to look at certain properties, and when they discover that it is close to ATV trails or even motorcycle routes, they look elsewhere. So if you have property and it's close to one of those trails within an area, and you go to sell it, you will not get the value that you would normally, because the pool of buyers has shrunk. This is because it's personal to me, because I grew up here. I have family still here. My grandsons are here. If we lose this, if I look up there and those trees are gone and there's trails and there's all of that, then our very being, our very essence of who we are no longer exists. My plea is to our state and local leaders to stop allowing deep pocket investors coming into our area and having their way with our nature, our creeks, our streams, our hiking trails, all of it. We need to protect our lifestyle.
So, as a volunteer fireman, I have concerns about where this non-organic traffic is going to lead us as far as responding to calls, emergency and non-emergency for the community. Where does this ATV traffic take us away from as far as the needs of the community? So one of the big concerns that I have is when West Virginia introduced on-road ATVing, I believe there were 690 roads that were now approved for ATVs. Since those 690 roads were approved, trauma calls have increased 24%. First responder calls have now increased 16% overall. So where does that resource come from to cover those calls, especially in a community like ours that is stretched thin enough? Where's the benefit to our community to allow these vehicles on our roads? That's the question.
My name is Grant Bennett. I'm the current mayor of the town of Bramwell, and we've had ATV tourism in this area for well over 15 years. The best thing to me about having the ATV tourism here is all the new people coming into town to meet and take in the community that these people in Bramwell are very proud of.
Yeah, before it was a nice, peaceful, quiet little town. You could enjoy walking up and down the street in the evenings, have a nice little time. Now on the weekends, from Thursday through Sunday, you get a lot of ATV traffic driving by, a lot of noise, people with radios blaring, bright lights on their ATVs, and the peacefulness has gone away for the weekends.
Sales tax is a big thing to come in, but that's the biggest source of income I can see from tourism coming in, because people come in, they're going to spend their money, you collect on the sales tax, increases, right? Lodging, hotel tax can help with that too.
Right, yeah, there's a lot of money that comes to town due to the ATV traffic, So restaurant owners, people that own businesses, they're really going to enjoy it. The county's really going to enjoy it because they're going to see a lot of revenue coming in from B&O taxes and things like that. But as an individual homeowner, you're going to see a few problems come in out of that. You're going to be paying a whole lot more in your taxes. You're going to be going into restaurants that are going to charge double because now you're a resort town.
Businesses shouldn't cater only to the tourism. Keep in mind that you have locals as well. Personally, I do see the benefit. I mean, if you bring an eye on the area through tourism, through whatever industry you have, obviously it's going to bring some more people to the area, which is going to bring life to the area and some prosperity.
No, it's not delivered on prosperity for the community. Like I said, a select few have made money on it.
It can improve properties and therefore improve property values, so people's property values will go up. That can also be a downside to some people because there are some low-income people that they don't want to see their property taxes go up.
The major things they need to think about is the noise, number one. Number two is the traffic coming into their town. Number three, you've got a lot of people you don't know coming into town. Number four is the financial aspect you're going to run into. They're not going to throw money on your porch. The county's going to take money from you because they're going to raise your property taxes.
Be prepared for the extra traffic of people coming in. It can get to a point where it's just, the residents are tired. Bluewell, I hear them complaining now about can't even get to the gas station because of a whole bunch of side-by-sides and trucks and trailers in there getting gas. The biggest gripes are the noise, the ATV tourism coming in and going into residential areas, basically exploring.
In these older homes, the ATV noise will sort of rattle your windows as they're idling, so we get a lot of that in the middle of the night. That's really disruptive.
Other complaints are additional trash.
Yeah, definitely. We see a lot more litter because of that. People just drive by and throw things out the window. We have a couple ladies in town that really pride themselves on keeping their town clean, and they actually count every piece of trash that they pick up. And I think last year they were somewhere around 25 or 30,000 pieces of trash for the year.
Racing down the streets, being loud, obnoxious, to the neighbors.
Usually there's a couple people a year die in this area from ATV crashes. So yeah, we see quite a bit of ATV wrecks. We help the fire department a lot on some rescues and things like that. They have trail vehicles that they go out and help on rescues with and pick up injuries. There's an old football field on the hill up here that's where the helicopter lands when they need to med flight somebody out, and usually we see that 4 or 5 times a year.
The importance to regulate the ATVs in your community is I would say above all, because if you don't have any kind of rules for them to adhere to and for you to enforce upon, then it's just the Wild West.
I think the number one thing I would do is mandate dusk to dawn laws where you can't ride after dark.
Any rules you have aren't going to mean anything unless you have the enforcement. So they need to make sure you have the enforcement. Tazewell County cops, local cops, whatever you have the enforcement to back up the rules, or the rules mean nothing. But yes, you need to have some ordinances laid out for where you want the tourism traffic to flow and have that balance between tourism traffic and residential areas.
A lot of the land that people used to hunt on and hunt all their life, now they're no longer allowed to hunt there because they're in the line of sight of an ATV. Animals are skittish of noise anyway, so the bear population and the deer population, they're starting to run off from the local area here because of the noise. They're getting drove deeper into the woods, or sometimes even they're getting driven out of the woods, out into the public. So if an ATV's running through the woods, scaring the deer out, they'll come down into town now. We see a lot more deer and bear down inside the town limits now.
I would advise local officials to hold as many town meetings. Don't just do one, do multiple sessions so that the community can come and voice their concerns and ask questions, and it can be heard. Local governments take time, sometimes too long, to get stuff, so they really should need to get ahead of this before everything comes in. There's definitely going to be growing pains. Don't be afraid to adapt.
My name is Wally Smith. I'm a professor of biology at the University of Virginia's College at Wise, where I'm an ecologist and I study the impacts of land use and land use change on Appalachian ecosystems. Yeah, ATVs, when you think about their impacts versus other types of outdoor recreation, ATVs are heavier, they move faster, they've got a bigger footprint. So there's a lot of risk for water quality, for soil erosion, impacts to wildlife, kind of across the board, just because of the size of ATVs. When you have hundreds and hundreds of ATVs in a given area, that compounds those effects. We have seen several impacts here in Southwest Virginia with water quality specifically. Some of those are just where you have a trail that is maybe going close to a stream. When it rains, because of the nature of that trail changing the landscape, the topography that's there, the runoff can go down that trail and either into the stream, carrying sediment, or onto adjacent properties where it causes issues. In other cases, we have actually seen here in Southwest Virginia some places where trails have literally been built through the stream. That creates phenomenal amounts of damage. It's very, very expensive to fix. It can be difficult to fix. In Tazewell County, we have actually documented in the last few years that some of the wetlands that trails have been run through on the trail systems that exist there have so much damage they can be detected from space. There are major risks to wildlife from ATV use. Some of those can just come from noise impacts. So when you think about in a forest like where I'm standing here, you've got deer, you've got birds, other wildlife. The sound of those ATVs can cause those organisms to leave, or it can cause them to change their behavior. We also in Southwest Virginia in the last few years have documented some really significant mass wildlife mortality that has occurred from ATV use in wetlands, in isolated pools, mud holes along roads. Amphibians, frogs, salamanders, that kind of thing come there to breed. And when you run ATVs through those, it's a lot of fun to go get wet and get muddy, but it crushes that wildlife. We've documented several thousand organisms that have died in just a single season from ATVs running through wetlands and breeding sites for different amphibians. But it's important to know that those organisms actually help keep the ecosystem healthy for the game species, the songbirds, the things we like to hunt and fish. So making sure that you preserve those habitats, preserve those wildlife species is critical for everything in the forest. When we have seen ATV trails here in Southwest Virginia developed, there can be a tendency a lot of times for a lack of planning with that development. The planning can move quickly, and most importantly, there's not a lot of public involvement in that planning, and that becomes a big issue because often the folks who live near the trails, subject matter experts, other stakeholders, they're going to be the ones who know the issues that could be there for water quality, for wildlife, for local noise issues. So what we have seen locally in Southwest Virginia is that process has not occurred. Historically, we have not seen a lot of upkeep of the trails that we have had. There's been a lot of erosion issues, some issues with private landowners near the trails having runoff impacting their properties, and those issues have not been remediated quickly when they've occurred. The biggest issue I think that we have seen in terms of maintenance of the trails in our area is our state regulators have kind of walked away when there have been known problems or regulatory issues on the trails, meaning that they're providing voluntary assistance to the trail operators, but they're not forcing them to go in and remediate issues. Yeah, I'm kind of conflicted about ATV tourism. I think, there's a place for it. It's a part of our culture. People ride at home. It's something they like to do for fun. We need to think carefully about the impacts of ATV development. I would say that about hiking, about mountain biking, about horseback riding, all types of trails have risk of environmental harm. But because ATV trails carry those higher risks, we need to think really carefully about how we're developing trails. So for me, it's not a question of do we need ATV trails or do we not? I know a lot of times people will hear environmental concerns and say, well, this person just doesn't want tourism. I'm all for tourism, all for development, even ATVs in the right situations. But it really comes down to how we're developing it. I think that's critical.
I'm Cindy Nicholson, and welcome to the Burke's Garden Vacation Rentals. This business is contributing to the local economy in several ways. We do a modest business, and we also pay significant taxes to the county as well as the state. The most common feedback I get from my guests is how they enjoy the solitude and the peace and quiet over here in Burke's Garden. I think if ATV traffic does increase here, it will certainly make it less peaceful and quiet.
My name is Clancey Deel. I do bird watching in Tazewell County. Also, I do presentations. I do a Facebook group page with photographs and information to entice people to come to Tazewell County and do birding. ATV will create a very serious, hazardous situation for the hobby that I love the most, which is birding. They're very sensitive to loud noise. The birding will be interrupted by the sounds. They will go to the underbrush, will fly away, and a lot of times won't even come back. Birding is nationwide rated as fourth, as in tourism, as well as income come from the tourism. Birding in Tazewell County has been noted in more than, I'm gonna say, a dozen magazines. Tazewell County has become very popular in birding tourism. I think ATV would be hazardous and seriously affect the tourism in the county.